This episode of Back to the Roots podcast is brought to you by Byron Seeds. The folks at Byron Seeds believe organic requires a different perspective, plan, and approach. Organic isn't simply a different type of product or even a different way of farming. It's a different way of thinking, planning, commitment. It's a different philosophy on how to feed the world. Many won't understand, but the people at Byron Seeds do. We're owned by organic dairy farmers. We not only have the product, but we plan, manage, and execute organic. We speak your language, we share your struggles, and we laud your successes. Organic isn't a way of doing business, it's a community. We learn from each other. We're in this together. We'd be glad to talk cropping plans, management systems, the road to profitability. We understand what you're trying to do. We're farmers just like you. Visit us at byronseeds.net or give us a call at 800-801-3596. And thanks to Byron Seeds. Back to the Roots podcast is brought to you by Soil Biotics. Soil Biotics Organic Growth Boost is a liquid humic acid product that promotes the conversion of nutrient elements such as N, P, and K into forms more available to plants, thereby improving uptake of nutrients, micronutrients, and water. It also improves the biological structure of the soil by helping to neutralize both acid and alkaline soils. Soil Biotics SB 4400 is a liquid product containing a combination of living beneficial microorganisms that allows plants to take in nitrogen from the atmosphere, enhances natural growth promoting functions in the plant, and can increase organic matter and CEC in the soil. Soil Biotics organic products are formulated to work together to provide a continuous, beneficial growth environment to meet all of your organic agricultural needs. For product details, visit soilbiotics.com.
You're listening to Back to the Roots podcast. I'm Mike Klein, and along with Brian Wood, we are in Corvallis, Oregon, and we are joined by Mike Dill, who is the manager of policy and advocacy at the Organically Grown Company in Oregon. So, Mike, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. My name is Mike Dill, and I'm a lifelong resident of Corvallis. And I've been working with Organically Grown Company for about 9 years now.
So, what brought you to Organically Grown?
Ooh, that's a long story.
We got time.
Well, let's see. So I went to school at Oregon State University and got a degree in food science. And through that, I knew I wanted to do more than just work in a food processing plant. And so I took some extra classes and worked in through the horticulture department because I wanted to learn more about soil. I wanted to learn more about food production, not just the processing part of it. So I got my degree in food science and technology, added on a minor in horticulture. And right after school, I got done and I was looking for work. And one of the first opportunities right out of school was a job with Oregon Tilth doing organic inspections. And I thought, wow, that sounds pretty cool. I could go and travel around. I could inspect farms. I knew organic was something that I wanted to get into. It was something that wasn't really offered at Oregon State University at the time. There wasn't a lot about organic, so I couldn't take many classes or learn much about it, so I knew I was going to have to learn on my own. So I took that opportunity and did that for about 5 years. I was an inspector and got to travel all over the country doing organic inspections. I also did certification work in the office, but I really liked getting out on the road. And one of the clients that I worked with really closely was Organically Grown Company. And I thought, these guys are great. They've got amazing culture. They're really active in, policy and advocacy. are really interested in growing the organic trade, and the people working there were just awesome. And so I spent a lot of time on the certifier end and inspector end working with Organically Grown Company. I was there when they opened their first facility, got to inspect that before they could even let any produce into the building. And so really got to know the company well. And about the time, shortly after I had my son was born in 2012, the travel of inspection became a little bit too much. And I thought, I need to probably look at something else. And so one day I was just chatting with my contact at Organically Grown Company and said, hey, I really love what you guys do. Is there any chance that I could ever work for OGC? No, sorry, OGC is Organically Grown Company. And soon after, it wasn't long, I wrote a letter to the company and said, here's what I've done. Here's what I think I could do for the company. I have an interest in growing the organic trade. I have an interest in food safety. I have the experience of organic certification. Is there, a fit for me at OGC? And they said yes. And they, it was like 2 weeks later, I had an interview, and, a week after that, I was hired. It was just amazing. It was perfect timing. And it couldn't have worked out any better.
Mm-hmm. So you were an organic inspector for Oregon Tilth all the way up until Organically Grown?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep,
Straight out of college and organic inspector. And you traveled outside of the Pacific Northwest doing inspections?
I did. Luckily, Oregon Tilth is just an amazing company to work with. And as soon as I got hired on, they invested in training, sent me to the IOIA, the Independent Organic Inspectors Association, training courses to become an organic inspector. So I took the trainings for becoming a crop inspector, a handling or processing inspector, and and then I just got to work, and I got to experience so many cool areas and across the United States, and companies, got to inspect them, everything from a 10-acre blueberry farm in Florida to high-end body care products in Manhattan, even Organic Valley. I got to go out and, and inspect the facility and the operations there. It was great.
I think you have to expound a little bit on the skincare products in New York City. Like that's literally something that I guess I never even thought of that.
So body care products can be certified. And so as a certifier, Oregon Tilth, certifies operations all over the country. So even though it's Oregon Tilth, they, their region is the entire United States. They at one point even certified an operation in China. They certify a lot of farms down in Mexico. So I was, a lot of times as an inspector, you build these trips and you try to make it as affordable as possible for your clients. So you'll go to one region and you'll, hit 4 or 5 or 6 operations so that they can all, kind of split the cost. And one of them just happened to be this body care product manufacturer in Manhattan. And so here I am, I was 25 years old, never been to the East Coast, and I show up at the airport, get my car, and it's a full-size SUV, and I have to go straight into like downtown Manhattan to my hotel, under the Lincoln Tunnel. I've never experienced any of this stuff, and luckily we had GPS systems. I was in that era, so I just plugged it in and just drove right into Manhattan, and I parked and I looked up, and it's just amazing. The buildings, it was something I've never seen before. It just worked out amazingly.
Wow.
And then, I was also at the time doing Oregon Tilth was working with Fair Trade USA, and we were doing fair trade audits as well. So my next inspection on that trip, although I think I went into New Jersey and then had to go back, so I was kind of going back and forth in that area. The inspection took place. It was a coffee or chocolate importer, and it was on like the 30th floor of this sky rise, and they set me up in this office, and I was looking right out at the Statue of Liberty, and I have this picture of my laptop, this amazing view, and the Statue of Liberty in the back, sipping coffee and auditing this company. It was amazing. So yeah, pretty incredible experiences being on the road, as what I consider kind of a youngster and someone green and traveling, in early 20s, just, here's a credit card and, go make all these inspections happen. It was insane.
And that is awesome. And then when a child comes along, all of a sudden that's not quite as awesome.
No.
And it's just, it's funny how, like, I've got 3 adult boys, and I'm like, if you want to do something right now, like a job that you can travel for your job, like, do it now, because once the family starts, those days are kind of over.
Exactly.
So then you came to Organically Grown because of starting a family. So.
Yeah, pretty much. I remember being on the East Coast and, FaceTiming with my wife and my kid, and I was just thinking, oh my gosh, I want to be there with them. I'm here for 7 days, and then I go home for a week or two, and then I have to hit the road again for another 7, 8, 9 days, and I just didn't want to miss those times. So yeah, and although I probably missed a few times that I was probably happy. I got away. I got away from doing a lot of diaper duty.
Yep.
But
there are pluses sometimes to be gone at certain times. So
there are, but no, it wasn't worth it. I wanted to be there with my kid.
Mm-hmm. So can you give us a little bit of history on Organically Grown, like how it started, and kind of bring us along, to kind of give us the background on Organically Grown, and then we'll get into your role there.
Yes, I will do my best. There's a long history with OGC. It was originally founded in 1978. So, we're going back quite a long ways. And it was first developed the idea was for a grower cooperative. Mm-hmm. So a bunch of small-scale farmers, gardeners, environmentalists, they all cared about raising healthy food, and they had this belief that organic food was the best way to nourish the people and at the same time protect the planet. So they had this vision. So that was 1978. Small, just a bunch of growers. I think if you look at the history on our website, it might even say a bunch of hippies. But
it is organic food in the 70s.
Right,
so.
Exactly.
Which is before organic was organic.
Oh, yeah. There were no federal standards back then, and they were kind of getting this whole movement started. So it started out, just with a bunch of crop coordination, trying to help each other out. Several years later, I think it was 1980, OGC got its first loading dock and cooler. And so that was pretty big. And from there, it just grew. It just grew and grew. We started bringing in product from outside of the area. At first, it was, kind of Eugene, Willamette Valley. But then as the market kind of grew and stores were wanting more organic product, started sourcing from, outside of our region here. I remember seeing, or I know that like the first year we had our facility, I think the sales for that first year were like $12,000. So, at that time it was a pretty big deal. But fast forward to where we're at today, and that $12,000 is not very much. But anyway, so yeah, started as a growers cooperative. In 2008, it became an employee-owned business, or an ESOP, and then we kept growing and growing, and we thought that it was time for another ownership structure. And so in 2018, we actually formed the Sustainable Food and Agriculture Perpetual Purpose Trust. No, that's a mouthful, but it's a SFAPPT. So it's a legal structure, and it ensures that our mission, our purpose, it will last into perpetuity and will remain as an independently owned company. So there's been a lot of news about this lately because, Patagonia recently shifted to the same ownership structure.
Okay.
But OGC did that, almost 5 years ago now. And so, now we're owned by an actual trust.
So what happened to the employee ownership? So the employees are all a part of the trust?
So there's 5 stakeholder groups within the trust, and coworkers or employees are one of those stakeholder groups.
Okay.
So I don't know all the things that had to happen, in terms of buying out folks or giving them the opportunity to reinvest in the company when we switched from an ESOP to this perpetual trust. But what it did is it set us up put us in a much better position for the future to accommodate the growth of the business and allow us to reinvest into the community and support our stakeholders. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's an amazing story, and I'm not the expert on it.
Sure.
But yeah, we've come a long ways. Yeah. Several ownership structures later, and here we are, owned by a trust.
Mm-hmm.
But at the basis of it is distributing small, organic produce growers' product.
Yes. I guess we kind of skipped over that in the introduction, but for those who don't know, OGC is a wholesaler and distributor of fresh organic produce. So we're the largest independently owned and only distributing organic product. We're the largest in the country, I believe. Definitely in the Northwest where we operate.
Mm-hmm.
What was the I understand at the beginning it was a bunch of small organic farmers wanting to essentially pool their product, but do you know what those products were at that time, and what has it grown to these days?
Well, at that time, it was, the produce that you can grow here in the Willamette Valley.
Which is what? Because we're not from here.
No, we're not, and we saw more hazelnut trees than I have ever seen in my life today.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Yeah, they're popping up everywhere.
And a lot of fields of, I don't know what.
Grass.
Yes.
We saw grass.
Is that grass seed?
It's grass for grass seed.
Okay.
So Willamette Valley is what they call the grass seed capital of the world. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but some of those fields are transitioning into hazelnuts. So hazelnut is becoming a big part of production here in the Willamette Valley. So that's big. But in terms of what we grow here is just a lot of row crops. So, kale, broccoli, carrots, just, your standard row crops, but we can't grow, citrus or the tropical fruits. So those are the things that, weren't part of OGC's offerings in the beginning. Mm-hmm. But as we started, expanding and distributing to more retailers, they wanted a wider range of products. So same thing with blueberries. So we supply blueberries, strawberries, raspberries year round, but we're only harvesting here in June through maybe September here in the Northwest. Otherwise we're getting it from California, Chile, wherever the season
mm-hmm.
where it's ripe at that time. So
Because people don't eat seasonally anymore.
they do not.
And,
No.
that's when I think about it, I'm like, that would be great if people got back to eating seasonally. Because that's how, in the history of the world, take away the supply, go back 100 years, you basically ate seasonally. But I also like asparagus and stuff during the winter. So I'm as much of the problem as everybody else, but that a company like Organically Grown that is bringing that stuff in, I love the idea of making that stuff available to people as well.
Yep, we got to bring in what the people want.
So what percentage of the stuff that you distribute is grown here?
Here being in the kind of the Northwest.
Northwest, yeah.
We're pretty close to about a third Northwest, a third the rest of the United States, and then approximately a third coming in, from south of the border.
Okay.
Mexico, a little bit in Central America, South America. But, Mexico does a lot of production in the winter months here. So, yeah, we can't, there's certain items we can't gap on or we can't be short on, and so we follow the seasons. So, but it's pretty close to a third.
Okay.
For each of those, buckets.
And for, you started as small organic farmers. Is it the same idea to this day? You're just expanded out of the region where it started, and do you have additional, what do you do when you bring on a new potential producer, or I don't know what you want to call it, do procurement of new product?
Well, so we've always prided ourselves on working with kind of the small and mid-sized farms. So that's our base. But I have to say, we have several hundred farmers in our network, in our supply chain. So it all depends, but in terms of onboarding them, we see what they have to offer. We kind of build this relationship. We bring them on, and then of course we have to go through all the compliance checks and everything, food safety, organic certification. But we really try to build that relationship and get to know our growers really closely. So, we do.
So is your role now to vet some of like the paper trail in the certification world, or are you outside of that now?
I spent 7 years managing compliance, food safety and compliance. So up until about a year and a half ago, I was pretty involved in that process. I was overseeing food safety at our facilities and vendor compliance, along with the trade advocacy work that I was doing. So I saw, at least on paper, every new vendor that we took in at OGC. So, and we'd review them for all the different compliance points that we needed to check off.
But then you would let the certifier do the on-farm stuff, like the work that you used to do. So whoever they're certified with, the certifier takes care of that, and then you just verify that paperwork coming from the grower. Is
Pretty
that
much.
the way it works?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because OGC can't double check all the work that the certifiers are doing.
On site, no. No.
Yeah, I'm talking on
Yeah.
site, but internally you would go through the paperwork to make sure that everything is legit.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep, that was a big part before any purchase was made. We definitely did a rigorous check and worked with a lot of back and forth just to verify things. If we'd read inspection reports and if we had questions, we would go back to them, or food safety plans. We'd check up on items if we saw something that seemed a little maybe risky or out of place, or there just wasn't enough clarity on what their practices were. We would check in on them, and we still try to get out and visit our farms as much as we can, but of course we can't do that at startup for every single new farm. So, but grower visits are, is a pretty important part to what we do in maintaining that relationship.
I'd like to step back a little bit. Can you talk about the founders? Are any of the founders still involved?
Yes, but we've had some retirements in the last several years, and David Lively is a name that has to be mentioned. He was one of the founders. His brother Tom Lively, who just recently retired, or we can call it retirement. It seems like some of these produce folks never fully retire.
A farmer never retires.
Yeah, they just can't step away. So David Lively is now, what's his title? Pioneer Emeritus. And Tom Lively, I'm not sure what his title is, but he still, goes on grower trips and, still interacts and engages with our coworkers quite a bit. David Lively, the guy's just a champion. He's when it comes to advocating for organics, he's there. He worked. He's on the board of the Organic Trade Association, so he still represents OGC at the Organic Trade Association, or OTA. He's been active in the Oregon Organic Coalition, and he's a pretty big part of our team still in terms of advocating for organic, for growth of the market, the benefits of organic, and just trying to keep this party going.
No, that's cool to hear. And like Brian said, very few farmers actually retire and step away from the operation. They might retire but still got to dabble in it.
Oh yeah.
So what is your role now? Because you said it changed a year or year and a half ago?
That's correct, yeah. So while I was doing compliance, I was also working on organic trade advocacy and policy work. So a lot of work with the National Organic Standards Board and some of our local policy at the Oregon legislature. So that was taking up a lot of time, and we were really, as a company, trying to double down on our advocacy, which is great. And I hate to say it, but I wanted to go in that direction, and I had kind of had enough of compliance. So compliance is interesting. I enjoyed it.
Checking paperwork got a little bit old. Yep.
Yeah, a little bit, but I mean it's so important, and it really it kept me connected to the business and to the growers and the supply chain. Navigating between if there were issues, but also kind of being that person that brought folks on, new growers, kind of coached them if they needed help with anything. So I really liked interacting with our supply chain members and helping them out, solve problems. So there were great parts of compliance, but I was really getting more and more interested in policy and advocacy, and so I wanted to focus primarily on that. I just didn't have the bandwidth to do what I wanted to and kind of have the impact that I knew we could have if we really focused on our advocacy strategy and kind of took it to the next level. Advocacy has been part of what OGC has done from the very beginning. Our mission is to promote and inspire the growth of the organic agricultural movement, and part of that is just making sure the systems are in place to allow for that to happen. So I wanted to go with the direction that my passion was, which was helping folks out. I wanted to help get money in the pocket of farmers. I wanted to make sure that they had the tools that they needed to be successful. And I really felt that, focusing on policy and advocacy was the way to do that. So I pitched the idea, to my boss at the time and said, hey, I'd really like to slowly transition out of compliance and work full time and on advocacy. And, he was in full support of it. And, when we had a new CEO come on, Brenna, she was in full support of it too, and so now it's just become a part of our strategic plan, and we're going full speed ahead. So it's been great. I love what I do.
What does policy and advocacy mean?
I think of it as creating change. So basically creating change and making things better. God, that sounds horrible. Like, that's so
Well,
elementary, but
No, I think what would help would be like an example of somewhere that you would be doing your advocating for organically grown.
sure. Well, right now, oh man, we have so much going on. So I sit on the board of the Oregon Organic Coalition and on the governing council of Washington State's Coalition for Organic and Regenerative Agriculture, and then also coordinate the Organic Produce Wholesalers Coalition. We call it OPWC. And so we look at, I mean, there's a bunch of different buckets that we look at, and our advocacy strategy focuses on three main kind of buckets, which is like organic standards development, making sure that there's a level playing field out there, that when new standards come out, that they, support small farmers, that it's something that's manageable, or that small farmers or just farmers in general aren't getting their tools taken away that they need. The next bucket is, supply chain resiliency, and the third bucket of our strategy is, the environment and climate. So we're looking for opportunities, whether it's through the Farm Bill to, influence the federal policy platform, or if it's local, we're working with our local legislature. So we're looking at, introducing bills that reward or farmers, or we're working with Oregon State University and the Oregon Department of Agriculture. We have an organic stakeholders group, and we're trying to, educate them on the benefits of organic, and trying to make sure that organic status of farmers or businesses is being considered in new policies that are coming out, or grants and programs. So one example, and I'm sorry, we got a lot of them, but we just introduced a bill to the Oregon legislature that would essentially get Oregon to match the federal organic cost share or organic certification cost share program. So right now, the federal government has this cost share reimbursement program where a farm or a business that's certified organic can recoup 50% of their certification costs, but up to $500. So that's the max. Well, it used to be $750. So over the last several years, that reimbursement has gone down. Inflation and costs and of everything has gone up. So our bill is asking Oregon to match the $500 that the federal government is giving, and match that and give an extra $500 to all the farmers. So that's an example of some policy that we're working on. We got two legislators to sponsor it. The bill was just introduced yesterday or the day before, and we're gonna follow it through to the end and see if we can make this happen, and put a little bit more money in the pocket of these organic farmers that have to pay thousands of dollars a year for organic certification. So that's just one example, but we've got several.
So when you say you're going to see this thing through, like, give me a timeline. Like, because I know nothing in politics ever happens quick. So when you introduce the bill, you've got some support, it was introduced. What are the next steps?
So luckily there is an end, and it will either pass or it won't. But the state legislature, they have this window, or they have this session. And this year the session goes from, I think, January through like into the beginning of June. It's what they call a long session. So So we're going to have to, continue to get support. We're going to have to go and testify in front of the legislature. We might have to see if we can tie this into some other bill that's being introduced. So Oregon has a drought relief package kind of bill. There's a healthy soils initiative bill. So there might be the opportunity to, kind of tie this in with some other legislation as opposed to having it as like a standalone bill. You know how you see those bills and there's like 10 different almost unrelated topics, but it could be one of those situations where it's like this gets tied in with the drought relief package, or maybe it just gets passed on its own. So, but that's the part that I'm kind of learning, and that's really exciting is to, we've met with legislators. We had to sell them on the idea. We had to get a sponsor. So you can't get a bill introduced without a sponsor. And so there's all these steps. And it's fascinating. It's fun. And it's lobbying in a sense, even though we have a lobbyist, but I feel like sometimes I'm, playing that role a little bit. But it's kind of a blast. At least right now. If it doesn't pass, I might feel a little different. I don't know.
What kind of reception do you get? Honestly, organic is still a fairly small part of the overall national. Now, here in Oregon, it might be a different story, but what kind of reception do you get when you're coming in as and we'll post a picture on as Organic AF.
Organic always and forever. That's what I feel. Well, it's probably exactly what you think. There's mixed reaction. So we have folks that are organic, they're diehard, they get it, they see the connection between organic and climate change or, resiliency. And then you have other folks that the organic it's the O word. It's something you don't say, they don't want to talk about it. So it's tough. And the other thing that we're trying to do is kind of ease that and get people to know that, sometimes when we talk about organic, we're talking about the practices, and not everything has to be certified organic, and so a lot of I don't know if we call them opposition, but when they think organic, they think of the seal. But a lot of times we're talking about just the practices. It could be cover cropping, it could be, using biological pest control methods, and they just haven't grasped onto that concept that there's more to organic agriculture and organic practices than just that seal that's competing on the market, on the shelf of the marketplace. So yeah, it's interesting, but we have those battles. I'm not sure how many, I won't mention names or organizations, but there are those out there that are, they're trying to destroy organic. They don't want anything to do with it. They acknowledge that we're just a small part of a small percentage of the market, but still they just don't even want us to have that. So it's interesting. Mm-hmm. But I see that as a challenge, and I like that, and that's where I want to have an impact. And I think there's the potential for impact is to change the minds of some of those folks. Mm-hmm. And I think the way to do that is to really realize that, at the end of the day, a farmer is a farmer, and we're trying to support farmers. We're trying to support those that are producing our food. And if they want to use a cover crop and grow a little bit more responsibly or sustainably, then, let them. And we should encourage them. And in fact, we should reward them and incentivize them for, doing a little bit more than they need to. Mm-hmm. So they could produce it without, the added costs of the compost or the manure or the cover crops or, managing rotations, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, it's just a practice, mm-hmm. And yeah, maybe they'll put the organic seal on it. Maybe they won't, but people still have, they still take a exception to it. So it's a shame.
Is that exactly where some of your battles are at, is saying that some of those practices are beneficial and getting pushback that, oh, what proof do you have of that?
Well, that's the funny part, is that people don't really, we don't get pushback on a lot of the claims of the practices.
Really?
So they kind of avoid that conversation. And I think it's because they're starting to see that some of these practices are being employed by the non-organic folks. Mm-hmm. And we had a recent farm tour at John Banson's, and we had some educators and some legislators there. And, there was a fellow that runs the organic extensions position. I think it's the field and forage position, one of the two organic positions in the OSU extensions. And he flat out said that he gets more calls from conventional growers or non-organic growers that want to know about organic practices. So he's not getting a ton of calls from the organic folks, but he's getting it from the non-organic folks, and they want to know more. So I think, people are starting to figure it out. The farmers are, and they want to incorporate some of these practices. But some of these organizations aren't ready to, I guess, kind of acknowledge that. But anyways, it was a pretty powerful part of our tour when, Cheyenne is his name, and he mentioned this, and I think people were pretty surprised to hear that, the bulk of his calls were from non-organic people, and they wanted to know what they could do better. Mm-hmm. So, pretty neat.
And I think that's part of what our mission is for the podcast here, is to have organic farmers on to talk about their practices, not here to push an agenda, but talk about practices that will work in any conventional or organics practice. So to have farmers on to talk about things that work, and organic management being one of them, I don't understand why that upsets people. You're working with nature.
Yeah.
You're not trying to take nature and kill it.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think it baffles me that we still have to put up such a fight to try to get, research dollars for organic research, when the research benefits organic and non-organic producers, but the opposite isn't true. If you have, chemical intensive, research out there, that doesn't benefit organic farmers. But anything that benefits, any research that supports organic practices, that helps everyone. So why are we still battling for, an equal percentage of, dollars for research and, education? It's beyond me,
And you must enjoy a good battle.
I do.
Because
sorry, I whispered that. I do.
It picked it up. The passion was there.
Oh, I do. It's fun. I think, I don't know, when you have so much, to back your arguments, it makes it fun. Mm-hmm. If I didn't, if I was struggling to find talking points, then it wouldn't be that fun. But knowing, what I know and what the organic community knows, and then trying to get people to accept that, or watch them, try to not acknowledge it, or, kind of take you in a different direction, or whatever. It's just, I don't know, it cracks me up, and I get a joy out of it. And I see it as a challenge, and I want to educate these folks. I want to educate the naysayers, and I want to promote organic as much as we can. And, what better way to do it than to go right at the people that, make the laws or control the, the research and the dollars, and let's do it.
So you touched, you talked a lot there on promoting organic, and definitely understand that side. You touched on, when you first mentioned what it is you do, protecting organic. And, I go back to when we had Hugh from Florida. He's a organic blueberry grower, and he was just railing on blueberries that are grown in containers on flat fields of plastic. And he also went on hydroponics or aquaculture, one of the two. Is that part of the work you do, and what are some things that you're doing to protect? I'm assuming it's to protect the people that grow for organically grown as well.
Oh man, you had to go there, huh?
So I want to add something in there.
Sure.
Like, I think Hugh has a very, very valid point, and he had a very valid point in his argument, because to like take a bulldozer and shave it off and put down plastic and then plant it in pots sounds a little crazy.
Yes, it could be. And I think there was a case that came up, and it caused a bunch of stir, and I think there were other parts of that too where I think they were like spraying Roundup or something underneath the plastic, and I don't know all the details. But man, this is the topic that's dividing the whole organic community, which is a shame that, we're all fighting the same fight to promote organic, grow the market, produce responsibly, sustainably, but this is one that's gonna take a lot to resolve, if we can even do that. Where do I even start with this? So the one thing that I guess where I need to start is by differentiating between hydroponics and what we're calling CEA, or controlled environment agriculture. So the thing that drives me nuts is when people just use the term hydroponics as a blanket for everything that's, not grown in the ground. Whether it's, microgreens in a tray, or it's, aquaculture or aquaponics with fish, or it's grown in a container. They loosely use this term hydroponics. And that's one thing I just, if there's any listeners out here that are on this, listening to this fight and have a dog in this fight, if we could just, talk about it as controlled environment agriculture, or container production, if it's not hydroponics. But so we've been following this for a while, and in fact we've submitted some pretty extensive comments to the National Organic Standards Board on the topic, in trying to get the National Organic Program or the National Organic Standards Board to start working toward standards on controlled environment agriculture. And it starts by defining what the different practices are. Hydroponics is quite a bit different than a bioponic system, where maybe you're growing, and this is kind of the containers or pots, and you're using a compost or a media, something that still has biological activity. So I see a huge difference between a biologically active growing media, where there's nutrient cycling, there's different levels of bacteria, fungi, earthworms, whatever, versus a hydroponic system where you have roots suspended in water and it's just liquid, it's just moving around in the system. So our kind of suggestion was to the National Organic Standards Board on this topic is to build or develop standards, find out, work with the organic community to figure out where that point is, where you have a biologically active system and maybe more of like a sterile system. And so, I agree. There's some styles of production that I don't think meet the principles of organic. There's some CEA systems that I think could. There's growers out there that grow in a pot and they bring soil in from outside, or they create their own compost, their own media, and they put that in a pot. And then we have growers that have a greenhouse and they go in with an excavator, take all the soil out for their crop rotation, and bring soil back in, and all it is basically a bigger container. So what's the difference between, where do you draw that line by? Is it the volume that a plant has of, soil or media? Is it indoor? Is it outdoor? Are there lights? Are there, no lights? Is it in a basement? So these are the things that I think we need to first, as an organic community, figure out what are the practices that we can consider organic or that are consistent with organic practices. And I don't have the answer, and I can see arguments on both sides of it.
Well, I think that's what makes this conversation so tough, is that it is gray.
Yeah.
When I bring up the example that when we went to the blueberry farm, he was using an extreme example, of scalping and, putting in blueberry bushes, and he's doing everything, and we were there, he's doing everything, top notch.
Absolutely.
So he's got a vested interest, but
he does, and a valid argument.
Exactly. But then there's everything in between too.
Yeah.
And that's where the things get the argument gets gray.
Oh, totally.
And
it's a wide spectrum of practices, and you can't just
eliminate
all of it
right here at this line here.
But I think we would all agree that organics is based on integrity, and it is about ethics and integrity. And then when you see people find the gray areas, the people that are doing it with when you go back to the original standards and how it's integrity based. So when the people that are doing it that way see people exploiting the gray areas, or shouldn't say exploiting, but finding the gray areas, I can see why they're upset. But then on the other hand, you see somebody that sees an opportunity, okay? Like maybe working the system a little bit. So that's going to be a hard one, because the worst thing that can happen, in my opinion, is that we get the organic community pissed at each other.
Oh, it's already happened.
Yeah. And that to me is sad. Like let's work with nature. Like let's work together and figure this out, because I think it needs to be figured out, or the divide will actually widen.
Yeah. Oh, it's going to. And I think the discussion that needs to happen first, if it can happen, is what are everyone's goals with organic agriculture and food production and food systems. And that's where I see that maybe we could find some common ground, because the people, this is kind of generalizing, but a lot of the same folks that are dead against hydroponics or anything that's not grown in the crust of the earth are also the same folks that are advocating for more local production, or production in food deserts, or less food miles, or we want less emissions. We want we're thinking about sustainability and climate change. But at the same time, the only way you can a lot of times grow food in the inner cities or in the north is in these CEA systems. So what I struggle with is, what's more important to you, or what's that goal? Because I would love for, there to be organic or non-pesticide or whatever food production in downtown Detroit. If there's a rooftop and you could grow something, I want them to grow there, and I want them to grow responsibly without pesticides and using, compost and whatever they can. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. But then again, it's not grown in the crust of the earth, and it's considered, CEA or container or hydroponics or whatever. So again, I don't know the answer or the solution, but I think that's the conversation that could bring us together, is what's the most important to us? What factors are out there that are guiding our decisions, in where we advocate and things we, stand for. And I know climate change is a big one, and I know organic in schools and local food and all that. But if you're in, Montana, and you've got this short window where you can grow some, lettuce or whatever out in, outside. But if you put a greenhouse on it, over it, or you add some lights or some heat or containers or something, you can extend that season, and maybe you could have more of a local, a local season. So I don't know, that's one that just bugs me, and I just love to have that conversation. And again, when you talk about like, being kind of aggressive or, like really wanting to have these conversations, these are the things that I want to talk to folks about. The people that are, dead against greenhouse production, what do you stand for? Do you want local production, or do you want, all your salads to have to come from Arizona,
and have
9 months out of the year?
2,000 miles of freight under that lettuce to get to my house.
Yeah.
But you just brought up the single best argument for growing that way that I've never thought about. Because I live out in the country, okay? So out in the country, I can grow whatever I need if I choose to do that. But like, I had never looked at that angle before.
Yeah.
And I
honestly, I don't think people want to talk about it, because then you get in that conflict. It's like that conflict of interest. It's like, I want to be anti, hydroponics, or at least organic hydroponics. And I shouldn't even say that. I'll use containers or bioponics, because that's where I think there's more of that kind of gray line, and you can make the argument one way or another. But yeah, if you want to stand for climate change and, reversing climate change and reducing emissions, and you're all for that, but at the same time you're against, container production with an organic seal, then, I think sometimes it can be a hard argument to make. But the alternative is just, you can still grow that way, you just can't call it organic. And if that's the case, then, we're back to that conversation about, should there be a label? Like, this is organic hydroponic, or organic bioponic, or aquaponic, whatever these, different ponics are.
And we're so inundated with labels as we speak that to bring more in is just going to cause more consumer confusion.
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, I think people are starting to become blind to some of the labels. I think organic, people know it. It stands out, and I don't think it's ever going to lose traction. It's backed by rigorous standards, third-party verification. It's recognizable. It's been around for a while. But yeah, some of these other ones, I think, it's just getting hard to track them and know what they stand for. And so anyways, I don't know. But if it's, organic container production or organic greenhouse production, hothouse, you see all these different terms. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I just want people to start talking and just hash this thing out. Let's get it out on the table. What are your big concerns? What are your goals? And what do you ultimately stand for? Because someone's going to have to give, We can't have it all. And if we can find that, kind of healthy medium, or that middle path where we're doing the right thing for the planet, we're doing the right thing for the people, and we're getting them, food that's responsibly grown. And when I say responsibly, without pesticides and,
organic practices.
Yeah, organic practices. So, I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm glad I'm not the one having this battle. I'm glad somebody's looking for the fight.
Yeah, and I don't want it to be a fight. I just want to, I just want to, like, get to the core of people and really, just find out, like, where are you going to give? Because I'll give a little bit, but, I want all these things. I want local food. I want to extend seasons. I want growers in, different regions to be able to maximize their production. I want them to be successful, and I want people to have access to good, healthy food. And
Well, and I think what you just said right there, people to have access to good, healthy food. Everybody in the argument has that. There's a lot that's in common. It's just when you get down into the fine details where stuff starts to get
right. I know.
And
all because 205, 201 point, A1 says that you must do this, or the Organic Foods Production Act, which was written in 1990 and, didn't account for the trends in the types of agriculture and, innovation and everything that we're going to, that we see now and that we're going to continue to see. We just can't always point to that and think that it's just going to remain static. And we, at some point, standards have to evolve. And again, that's why I do what I do, because I want to, I want standards to evolve, but I want them to work, and I want the principles to remain what they should. And, I want organic to stand for something, responsibly grown, sustainably grown, integrity, enforcement, all that. But I think we can do that and still, evolve a little bit.
I think for me, I'm in my mid-40s, okay?
You look like you're 25.
Oh, thank you. I hear that a lot. No, definitely don't. But accepting change, the older you get, the harder it is to accept change. But I think we need to be open-minded enough that realize that some of these standards are going to have to evolve and change as we go, and not just put our stake in the ground and say, if it goes beyond this, this is BS. Mm-hmm. We have to be open and to realize that, okay, I love how you put it, healthy food. And when you look at cities, okay, you have to figure out how can you grow that stuff unless you want to haul everything in. And when you look at New York City has a 3 days supply of food within the city at any given time. 3 days. Okay? So everything is hauled in there. So hopefully somehow we can figure out how they can grow some food in the city in a healthy way. So we have to be open-minded, but we also can't forego our principles. So there's that balance. I don't want to be the old stick in the mud. But I also want to not give in on my beliefs as well. So I think there's room for everybody.
Yeah, I agree. As long as we come to that, kind of that healthy medium, where we figure out what everyone's goals are. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important. But if you look at, food safety standards, they change, they evolve. Fair trade standards, social accountability, all these, standards, they all have to evolve. They all have to change a little bit. And we do that with the National Organic Standards Board. We review, current standards, current materials on the national list. We look to see if there's any, new materials that could replace anything on the national list. We're already doing it. But I think we could, just maybe take it a little bit farther and just see what, where else can we make some improvements to the standards to allow for us to meet our overarching goal. The National Organic Standards Board in the last meeting in October had a discussion document about organic as a climate change solution. And so right there, we saw a lot of agreement, a lot of consensus that yes, everyone feels that organic agriculture is a solution to climate change. It offers resiliency to growers, and the organic soils capture more carbon. They sequester 26% more carbon than, non-organic fields. So we agree on a lot of this stuff. We have that principle, that kind of goal, to see organic grow and thrive and be recognized for what it is. But at the same time, we can't be maybe stuck back in the 90s, and we're going to have to, there's going to be some areas where we might have to change the standards to allow for practices that, are necessary to, adapt to climate change or whatever, you're facing in your region.
Yeah. This is a conversation that we could keep going forever.
I know. I don't even know what time it is. Has it been like 20 minutes or like an hour and a half? I'm not even sure.
I don't even know. But no, this has been a really interesting conversation. I want to take this time to thank you. How do people connect with Organically Grown?
Oh, probably how everyone else does, through our website.
Okay.
Look us up. We have a website. Give us a call. I don't know. Am I supposed to give my email address over the phone? But no, I mean, that's the part that I love. Is I love engaging with people. I want to hear stories. I want to hear people's opinions. I want to maybe change someone's mind, or I want someone to change my mind. I don't know. I just want to have that opportunity and chat with people, because I learn from everyone I chat with, and hopefully they learn something from me. And if they do, then I consider that a success. That's the impact that I want to have. Whether it changes their mind or not, that's fine. But I want to at least have that opportunity, and I want to give it a shot.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I know I learned something from this conversation. That's for sure.
I know I did too.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mike, so much for taking the time to sit down with us. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, so thank you.
I did too. This was great. I kind of wish we didn't have to end. But I get it. So thank you.